Hi, I'm Royce Morales, transformational facilitator, spiritual teacher, radio host, all kinds of things. And I've been talking to you a lot about spiritual growth, inner awakening, all that fun stuff. And today I want to talk about something I talk about in my classes a lot, which is reincarnation. And I know some of you maybe don't believe in reincarnation. I actually was one of those people too. I used to proudly proclaim that my middle name was skeptic. And I just thought that people who believed in reincarnation just had a nice little convenient way to not have to deal with their fear of death. That's where I was coming from. But the thing is, most people on the planet actually do believe in reincarnation. It's kind of a novel idea for us Western society people, but it is a very common belief. And I want to talk today about why we are afraid of looking at past lives. But before I get there, I just want to tell you guys why I started to believe in past lives. I needed a lot of evidence. Let me just put it that way. I was meditating one night, just minding my own business. And all of a sudden, I saw this really vivid image of a woman, and she was drinking something, and I saw that it was a bottle of poison. And I literally felt the poison in this life going down my throat. It was burning and awful, felt very uncomfortable. And the interesting thing that happened was when I got out of that meditation, I had been suffering from stomach problems my entire life. I had a very nervous stomach, as I like to call it, and constant pain, anything that was going on went immediately to my stomach. And after I saw that image, and I at that point didn't realize it was a past life, I just thought it was kind of a weird image. But when I saw that experience and I let myself experience it in the meditation, gee, my stomach problems went away. And to me, not only was that miraculous, something I had suffered from for years, but it was also proof. It offered proof that, wow, maybe there is something to these past life memories. I started to have lots of them in my meditation, and they either helped me resolve something in this life, or I had other things that actually caused physical healing. It explained relationship issues that were going on with my current husband and my son. It was just amazing. And I started to not only believe in them, but I started to apply getting in touch with them to assist people. And that's really a lot of where my classes started, realizing that, gosh, we're carrying these memories with us and they're affecting us, and maybe we can do something about it. So, like I said, I started to apply it in my own life, and then I started to apply it with my students, and they started having similar amazing experiences and amazing healings and amazing shifts and understanding of things. So I want to talk, like I said, about why we're afraid to look at past lives. Because in our society, most people, like I said, don't believe in them and maybe have some fearful issues about addressing them. I know I sure did. The first fear, and this is kind of funny, is, and it actually did happen this way, there's a fear that if we got in touch with our past lives, we would come back and we'd want to reclaim some of our possessions. And this actually did used to happen in, history. People would come back and go, that was my horse, or that was my farm, or whatever. And they would try to prove it by saying, well, I remember it. And of course, that's not something that people would be thrilled about, having people come back and want to claim what was theirs. So that's number one. Even if it's not something that you're concerned with, it was something historically that was a big concern. The second concern, and this is something, and I don't mean to insult anybody's religion, but the Bible actually did have reference to past lives, but they took it out at some point because they found that the church could have more control if they told people that you're going to go to heaven or hell. So needless to say, if you don't think you're coming back and you're going to be banned to, to damnation and hell the rest of your existence, you're going to behave, and the church is going to have more control over you. The third reason, and this one is kind of a social reason, especially in Western society, and that is that we have a big concern in our society about achievement drive. So if people believed in past lives, the fear is that, gosh, I don't have to do that. I don't have to try really hard because I'll just come back and do it again. So there is fear of that, losing that achievement drive. And by the way, that doesn't happen. I think it's just the opposite, actually. At least it was for me. It made me understand that, wow, I've really got to do this in this life. Because, when I started to see the patterns and all the lifetimes that I didn't do what I was supposed to do, it became even that more pressing to me to do it. The fourth one, and this one is a big one, we'd have to be completely accountable. So when you start to understand the patterns and the things that go on from lifetime to lifetime, you start to realize, wow, I really am accountable for everything. I've been in this pattern, or I've seen these lifetimes where it's very clear to me that I made choices that maybe I shouldn't have. And now I'm paying for them or living them out in this life. So I have to be responsible. So that's a really big one. And I'm going to talk more about that in future videos, but just kind of keep that one in the back of your mind. And by the way, historically, a lot of leaders of the world understood this, which is why they were not real thrilled about the notion of reincarnation, because then they'd have to be completely responsible too. The next fear is that maybe we would abuse that information. So if we knew something about ourselves in our past lives, maybe in some way it would become an ego thing for us, or we would abuse it. By the way, that usually doesn't happen, because I find that our higher consciousness knows the right time for us to start getting in touch with our past lives. It doesn't give us that information until we're really ready to not abuse it. Can't say that 100%, but most people on a higher consciousness level are not gifted with that information until they're really, really ready for it. The next one, and this one I think is really common, and that is that a lot of us have the notion that, gosh, this lifetime is overwhelming enough. I don't need to know about my past lives. That's a very common attitude. So, in fact, a lot of times that our memories of our past lives start to disappear when we are overwhelmed with being in this particular physical body. So, and in case you're wondering, we do arrive here with memories of our past lives. They're very clear, which is why a lot of young children start talking about their past lives very early on. I've had students that have said, gosh, my little boy told me about dying in a traffic accident or in a plane crash or whatever. And there's no way that he would know that except from a past life memory coming up. So we do start to suppress those memories very early on, especially if we don't have people that support them. If, your mom says to you, oh, you're just making that up, or you just saw that on a cartoon or whatever, those memories start to cloud and they start to disappear. But again, a lot of us have the notion that, God, it's, overwhelming enough being in this human body. I don't want to remember all that stuff. That's a very common one. The next fear, I label it as a fear because it really is, but a lot of us have the notion that it's not real logical to remember past lives. It doesn't make any sense, which, once you start remembering them, it does make sense. But in our logic-based society, in our world, it doesn't seem like it's very logical. Which kind of leads into the next one, which is that we're afraid that people would judge us and think we're weird and, oh, you're just so woo-woo. I think that is changing. I really do. I think the world is starting to evolve past that notion, but there is that fear that we would be judged as kind of weird or strange or whatever. The next one, and this one I think is pretty universal, and that is the fear that it will be scary to remember our past lives. I know that there were a few lifetimes that showed up in my memory that were a little bit scary. But the truth is, I got through them and I understood the lesson from them. And I, you know, understood why I needed to see that, etc. And yeah, it was a little scary for a minute. So what? But that is something that a lot of my students have expressed to me. It's like, oh God, I don't want to know. Maybe I did something bad. I don't want to know. That's just too scary. So it's, yeah, like I said, it might be a little scary. Your lower consciousness, your fear-based consciousness might say to you, oh no, this is too scary. But you'll survive. You will. And as far as I'm concerned, it's much scarier to not know all that stuff about myself. I want to know. Give it to me. The next one, which kind of goes with what I was saying a few minutes ago, and that is that the timing isn't right. You really need to be ready. And your higher consciousness is not going to give you something that you're not ready for. So the timing needs to be right. Or maybe there needs to be certain people in your life at this point, or maybe you need to have support of some kind to get in touch with it. So timing, readiness, all that stuff is very important. The last one that I want to mention, I'm sure there's more, but these are just some common ones. The fear that we would be completely in our power if we're in touch with all of that stuff about ourselves. And that's really scary. That's probably one of our bottom line fears in life, that I would be this powerful, amazing, purposeful person living a meaningful life, understanding the bigger picture of things. Yeah, that is scary to your fear-based consciousness, to that lower part of you that is only concerned with your survival. So it doesn't want you to be in your power. So, as I've been saying, not all of us are ready to look at past lives. It might take some preparation. It might take some dealing with this life first, dealing with these issues, etc., dealing with your fears, having somebody to support you through it. It's not something that everybody is ready for. So I always say that there's probably lots of reasons to look at past lives, but I've kind of boiled it down to 4 main reasons, and I'm going to give you those reasons. The first reason is to release those past life traumas that you are still carrying around subconsciously. That's the biggest, as far as I'm concerned. Well, it goes hand in hand with number 2, but let me talk about number 1. For releasing those things that happened to you in a past life. Like I said, when I remember drinking that poison, I released that memory. I released on a cellular, physical level, and things shifted. So releasing the memories that you are subconsciously carrying around is absolutely a miracle. It's a gift. It's amazing. So that's the number 1 reason. And by the way, these reasons, if you're not quite in touch with them yet, a lot of people want to get in touch with past lifetimes because they're curious. I know that's kind of where I started from. But eventually, getting in touch with past lives is an opportunity to grow and shift and become more higher consciousness, more spiritual, more aware. And that's really the reason that you should in quotes be looking at past lives. But if you're still just curious, that's fine too. You'll get there. So that's number 1, to release the old programming, those things that are affecting you that you're not aware of, the traumas, etc. The second reason, which I think is, again, a real big tie with number 1, and that is to remember and to release and clean up those things that maybe you did in a past life. I talk about that a lot in my classes. There's things that we're carrying around with us, old guilt, things we haven't forgiven ourselves for, things that we chose this lifetime to come and clean up that we're not even conscious of. For me, it was, I'm spilling my deep secrets now, but for me, I was supposed to be teaching stuff in past lives, and I chose not to do it. I was too afraid to do it. So I just kept coming back and creating opportunities to do it. And I just kept going, I don't want to do that. This lifetime, is about finally doing it and finally cleaning that up. That's what I'm here to do, which leads me to number 3, which is, well, let me skip number 3 for a minute. Let me go back to this one. Getting in touch with past lives, a pure purpose for getting in touch with past lives is to understand and get in touch with certain relationships that you're in. I wrote a whole book about a very profound relationship that I found myself in. And it took me several years to get in touch with what it was really about and to resolve all of that stuff. And by the way, the book is called Want, True Love, Past Lives, and Other Complications. You can read all about it in that book. But there's a lot of relationships that continue from lifetime to lifetime, and I'm going to get into that in my next video about reincarnation. But those relationships that we get into are based on past relationships. They're based on things that we need to learn together or grow together or resolve together. All of that stuff gets continued from lifetime to lifetime. So that's the third pure reason. And by the way, it really resolves stuff. I had a lot of issues with my first husband and I just could never resolve them. And it was like, what's going on? And I got in touch with lifetimes where we had done some pretty negative things together and he had done some pretty negative things to me. And when I got in touch with that, and I could understand the bigger picture of why we were thrown together in this life, why I even married him, it was very profound, and it shifted our relationship so we could become dear friends, even though we were divorced. Now, the fourth reason that I alluded to, and that is to get in a pure reason to get in touch with our past lives, is to awaken us to our true purpose here. I would say, if nothing else, that's the biggest reason to get in touch with past lives. So maybe you kind of sense your purpose here, but you're too afraid to manifest it. Or maybe you're wondering what your purpose is. It's never clear to you. Past lives can explain that to you, and it can give you amazing information about what you're supposed to do here and why. So those are the 4 pure reasons why to look at past lives. And as I've said, if you're not there yet, that's fine. For me, I started to see past lives that were just kind of interesting and intriguing, but eventually they all started to make sense and they started to give me the bigger picture of my life and why I'm here and why I'm with certain people and why certain people in my life have disappeared and come and gone and all of that stuff. It really offers answers, it offers proof, it answers so many questions that you might have about your life and all of what it's all about. So I'm going to be talking more about reincarnation in my next video, so stay tuned. If you do want to work with me, I do help people to get in touch with their past lives if they're ready. I have no control over that. That's your higher consciousness that's in control. But I do work with people, not just for curiosity's sake, but to get in touch with specific memories that they're here to resolve and complete. Reach out to me. RoyceMorales.com is my website. And please subscribe and hit like, because you'll be notified of all my future episodes. And all of this stuff is so interesting and enlightening, and I hope you're getting some value from it. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.